Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and on this Jurassic James Explains, we do Masiakasaurus. Now, what's an important animal? You've probably never heard of it before. In fact, it's a very obscure dinosaur, and it's one of those things where whenever I'm doing talks, I never mention this kind of animal because no one knows it exists kind of thing. And it's like, well, why don't you explain it? It's a long story. But here's the thing. Masiakasaurus is actually from Madagascar. So I've often thought about doing a lecture or a talk about dinosaurs of the world because normally I have to talk about just American species given my position and what I do right now. But in general, this one's really cool because Masiakasaurus is really weird. And I say, and what is weird? We find dinosaurs in Europe in the 1800s, right? And the term's coined 1842 by Richard Owen. And we think of them as one set of things. You go to North America, we find bigger species, different things, because Europe was a series of islands in the Jurassic. So we go to North America, with a continent, so we have bigger animals. And then, okay, this is what's normal. And then now we're in the 90s, and now we're digging in South America and Africa and Asia and finding different species. So they're considered weird because why? They're not like we're used to, but again, dinosaurs are all over the planet. They would, of course, adapt to different situations. So that's what makes me kind of say he's weird, but there's still more to it. So first and foremost, I want to point out my first figure, which I just got like a year or two ago. Masiakasaurus, it was named in 2001. And you're probably wondering, why do you always mention the years they were named or discovered? And it's important because you'll notice that dinosaurs that were found closer to 2000, there's less iterations of them. It's like the figure is what it is. But one found in 1800s, you're going to see multiple versions of the same animal because they're rethinking this paleontology every 10, 20 years. The Renaissance, the dinosaur Renaissance happens, our view of them changes dramatically then. So that's why it's important for me to tell you the year was found, because a dinosaur found in 2001 will have very few changes to it than one found in 1984 kind of thing. Sorry, 1884, Ceratosaurus, previous video. So one thing to point out here is with this guy is that Madagascar has been an island, it was an island even in the Cretaceous period. It was geologically a part of the mainland. It's still continental crust, but it's been separated since the Cretaceous at least. And just like the animals today are very different, the animals back then are very different, yet we can trace their continental relatives, basically. So the first one to point out this guy is that it's a member of a group called Nodosaurs. Now, not Nodosaur, the ankylosaurs without clubs, Noasaur, N-O-A-saur. So I mentioned to you before the abelisaurs. So who are the abelisaurs? They include the Carnotaurus from Disney's Dinosaur. They include Rugops, who lived in Africa, North Africa. And there's one more here. Where is he? Oh, there it is. Madagascar, which is, I think I did a video on that one earlier in the year. So these are abelisaurs. So essentially when the Tyrannosaurs ruled the Northern Hemisphere in Cretaceous period, the abelisaurs were all over the south. So we see them in South America, Africa, Australia, India for sure. Actually not in Australia, I haven't seen any in Australia. So South America, Africa, India. And one thing to point out is that abelisaurs is a supergroup in a family, but there's another branch of the group called Noasaurs, which I think the most famous member of is, as of right now, is Deltadromeus, which is discovered in North Africa. So it's living in Lake Cretaceous, North Africa. And when they first found this guy, they weren't sure where it fit in as well. But Masiakasaurus is in that group, so it's a Noasaur, basically, right? So what's the big deal with this guy? It's unique because its teeth are very weird. It's called heterodont. Hetero meaning different, dont tooth. So dinosaurs, for the most part, have the same kind of teeth all over their mouths, or just different sizes maybe. But for this guy in particular, except for Heterodontosaurus, who is his own special story. But this guy, the teeth are different. So the front teeth, the jaw's like that, the front teeth kind of like go like horizontal, and they kind of bend like that. So most likely, it's every picture I've seen of it, recreation is of eating fish, because clearly it has this really, when you see jutting teeth like you see in pterosaurs, that usually means grabbing fish or something. The hands were thought to be the feet initially, so they thought they had a single claw, but they had this like larger claw, like kind of like Baryonyx, but not as big. They're only about 6.5 feet long, so they're small by natural standards, but they're heavy along at the body. So Noasaurs in general are very different than like a raptor or a Rex or Allosaur. They're a different branch altogether, right? And this guy, I mean, as far as the skeletal remains I've seen, and if you ever wonder, when I draw pictures, I look at a skeleton and I draw around that. Now, obviously, there's soft tissue that's going to be accounted for. Look at a hippo skull; it's very different than a hippopotamus face, you know. But in general, when looking at how the bones bend in different ways, I always look at that when I'm drawing my skeleton. So when you see this will be depicted, if you know, it's straight from the skeleton basically. Um, this the reason I'm doing this video is because I was at Target and I saw this, and this guy. I mean, I'm impressed that the Jurassic World, like Mattel, is making all of these creatures in different ways. And yes, they're making them toonish and toyish, but just to get their names out there is really cool to me. So let's see. To remove it or quote unbox it, we're gonna go ahead and put this right here and right in there. There you go. Oh, okay. Like small soldiers, it pops out of the bag. Box. So again, compared to the, like I said, this is still a toy. Its feet are probably made wide to balance properly, but overall, this guy's how, you know, it has a very long neck for its design. It has head shaped very differently than most of the theropods. This guy it's kind of like the generic toy version of these small theropods. The tail's very short, but I like the fact they have these little osteoderms here. There's no proof of that, but we see it in some of their distant relatives, so it's not out of the question. The teeth being kind of forward and out, that's really neat. And the hands, of course, are correct. They both have the hands going in. So again, it's why it's important to see the newer model toys, because their hands are doing this, not doing that. They're doing this. It's really cool. The feet are very long. And again, that extra pad of skin there, we don't know for sure. It's a footprint. But overall, like this guy, if you're looking for science, this guy's in here. I just bought it because I was like, wow, another one. This is really cool. But the idea of these guys eating fish is really a cool concept, though, because who are they living with? Good point. As I said before, I mentioned I did a video on Masiakasaurus, who, as of to date, is the king of Madagascar. It's the largest predatory dinosaur, on the environment. These two are not to scale very well. But also I want to point out that they don't make it, but there's a titanosaur called Herpetosaurus, which this is a Malawisaurus. So think along this line. This is an African species that are like Cretaceous, and a Rural avis, which is like when they first found it, they thought it was a bird. Now I think it's a Dromaeosauraptor. This is not the same figure. This is one from China, but it's giving you like the idea of how the animals looked. So this would have been his like environment. Those 4 species have been found there, and I believe there's like 20 or 30 Masiakasaurus skeletons found. So they're pretty well known. About 65% of the skeletons known. So that's pretty good actually, compared to some like Ceratops, different part of frail and like, oh, new species, but at least this guy's pretty well known. So these 4 have been found in the terminal age, the late Cretaceous, Maastrichtian age of Madagascar, and they're really well known. I remember my first dino chart, they were on this little sliver of time right there showing them. But this is a guy, for the most part, as far as this design goes, the importance of the big picture is that we have to let go of the old ideas of what's normal or not for dinosaurs, because in Europe in the 1800s, it's normal to be a Megalosaurus, and it's normal to be a simple stegosaur or iguanodon, and then we go to North America and find these long sauropods and these tall sauropods. And now we go to South America and we see sauropods with armor in their skin, you know. So with Masiakasaurus, it's a good example of that concept of we're finding these things. That being said, this video marks me catching up. In July to August of this year, I have been filming stuff, but not posting it. And I made a commitment to do from April 2020 to April 2021 to do a video every weekend, and I got behind by 5 videos. So this week I've been taking everything I've been working on and putting it together. So now we're catching up, which means tomorrow, which is Saturday, I will start with my actual normal Saturday video, and we'll move forward back on schedule. That being said, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.